let's flip it upside down. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and our top 3 reasons why the Sixers will win this series. Lead us off, Tiago. Your number 3 reason is B-ball Paul time. Go ahead, man.
I mean, that's my reason and everybody's reason in the I mean, let's be honest. If DeAndre Jordan is going to be a factor in the series, the Sixers are going home. It's as simple as that. I mean, there's just no world where DeAndre Jordan is going to make an impact in this series. Yeah. The Raptors run small. They space the court. I mean, we've seen time and again how Jordan is not that type of player, beyond the fact that the lack of hustle is concerning, to say the least, for a team that attacks the glass at a very high level. DeAndre Jordan is a washed basketball player. And B-ball Paul Reed, man, the last couple games that he's played with the Sixers, you're starting to see more and more why a guy like that plays very well in a playoff series against Toronto. Granted, a lot of it is on paper because Reed does foul a lot. He does make a lot of stupid decisions sometimes, for lack of a better term, which you can't just have that out there in the postseason. But when you think about matching up size with Toronto, Paul Reed is the guy, man. I mean, we can talk about him playing a small ball 5 and getting out there on a guy like Chris Boucher. Or what you can really do with Paul Reed is you can play perhaps Tobias Harris at the 5 and match up Paul Reed on Siakam at the 4. So you have that flexibility with Paul Reed that you would never have with DeAndre Jordan. Yep. Is Doc Rivers going to do that? Is a different thing. But anybody who's watched the Sixers very closely can see this train wreck coming, man. It's just a matter of what he's going to do or not.
I mean, this is the guy who put Danny Green on Trae Young in Game 1 in the Hawks series.
Yeah.
Come on. What are we doing here? What about you, Sean? Oh, wait, let's roll on to Sean's pick, and that is Maxi's time to shine.
Yeah, so with this Toronto defense, they're, like all the videos have shown, they're super double heavy on Embiid, and they also key on Harden a good bit as well. I think this could shift as the series goes on if Maxey plays well early on, but I think as it opens up, he's going to have kind of the advantage matchup-wise in that he isn't going to be taken as seriously as the other two guys. So I think also with his ability to explode off the dribble is something that will still be effective against this Toronto team. And just Maxey has proven to be good enough to be that guy that can be relied on that heavily in the offense. So I think it's his turn to step up in terms of just where the focus will be. That's what I think the Sixers' best option is in a lot of ways. So a big Maxey series would go a long way to helping the Sixers.
Love it, man. I actually had that as one of mine, but I took it away because I saw you had that. For me, it's all good. We're going to be overlapping a lot here, I think, over the next 30 minutes. For me, the Sixers starting lineup. You look at the Sixers starting lineup. They are a plus 14 plus minus and a 9.0 net in 74 minutes with Danny Green, and Raptors starting lineup plus 6 with a 0.5 net in 345 minutes. So they've got a lot more minutes than the Philadelphia 76ers. But since the All-Star break, man, the Sixers are second in points scored. They're first in free throw attempts with nearly 5 more attempts than the second best team. So I think obviously the Raptors are clearly a more deeper team, a more well-balanced team, probably a better put-together team. But the starting 5-wise, they're better. The Sixers are 100% better. And, 40-plus minutes of Embiid, assuming he's playing every game. I'm hoping James Harden can improve his ability to finish around the rim. I think that's a huge positive. I think the Sixers starting lineup is going to, if they play more, they should be okay. Because when the Sixers starting lineup is good, and the Sixers have gotten to pretty big leads, in these games against the Raptors, like 17-2 runs and all that kind of stuff. It's just all a matter of weathering the storm and that transition mode from third to fourth quarters and all that mess, which we'll get into. But that is my number 3. Let's roll on to Tiago's number 2, and that is the Tyrese Maxey pick and roll. You're muted, man.
Sorry about that. It starts with kind of what Sean said about Tyrese Maxey, and we talked about it earlier in the podcast. Maxey's a quicker player. Toronto's long, they're athletic, but they struggle to stand in front of quicker guards. They're a very, very good pick and roll defending team. So they either trap pick and roll, they defend both the ball handler and the rollman extremely well. So the way that I really see Maxey operating in the pick and roll is playing off that attention that Harden's going to have and also Embiid's going to have. I mean, there's multiple shots that you see when you watch Toronto defend the Sixers, where they're just flat out selling out on Embiid diving down the rim, which makes it for wide open Maxey driving lanes or catch and shoot options. So I see Maxey's usage going up in this series, primarily as a secondary ball handler, but also as an off the catch player. So I do think, like what Sean was saying, like it's Maxey's time to shine, but primarily playing off Harden and Embiid.
Yeah.
I am not so certain that you can say Maxey run a second unit, keep Harden and Embiid off the floor, and be successful. I'm not saying he can't do that, but it's a lot more on his shoulder to do that. So I'm very confident that he's going to have a very, very good series playing off those two guys.
And this is a kid that has notoriously stepped up in big moments.
Yeah.
Like his entire resume is littered with these moments. So just as good as Gary Trent Jr. and Van Fleet is. And how about Tyrese freaking Maxey? Sean, your number 2 is Matisse Thybulle's limited role. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, shout out to Nick in the chat for already being ahead of me here. But there's been a lot said about obviously the situation and why he can't come and everything. I don't think this is a series for Matisse Thybulle, regardless of if he's able to play or not. Even the home games in Philly, I don't think this is a series that benefits him. The spacing issues that he causes, and obviously it will hurt not having his defense around, but this Danny Green is necessary in this lineup for the way that the Raptors will defend and the looks that will be created. The Sixers just need a guy that can knock down corner threes, space the floor, and that's exactly Danny Green. Georges Niang's another guy I expect to step up to capitalize on the open looks. They need the three-point shooting from the outside. That's going to be the key, as it has been with the Sixers for pretty much several years now. The spacing is going to be everything, and the Raptors are going to do so much double-heavy stuff that the looks are going to be there. And I don't think Thybulle is the guy to capitalize on it. So even though it is unfortunate he's out, it kind of helps Doc Rivers, I guess, make an easier rotation decision and lead it that way.
Can I just make one point on Tyrese? Because I do think Sean is pretty much spot on. But I do think that one way that you can beat Toronto's defense is by getting out off the break, getting turnovers, getting quick offense. And Tease is one of the best players at generating that. So they are going to be missing in Toronto his ability to just create quick turnovers off deflection and whatnot. So that's something you're going to see a lot more in Toronto, where they're going to be stuck in the half court trying to figure out how to break down that defense. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it's something to think about in the Toronto games.
Yep. Nick says there's no excuse if B-Ball Paul isn't the center off the bench against Toronto. I agree, man, but Doc's going to Doc. You know it. And until Daryl Morey probably gets in his face after like game 2, and then we'll see what happens again. I don't know. I'm just making it up. Let's roll on to mine, and that's the Embiid Harden free throw rate. I mean, you look at Toronto's ability to just generate more shot attempts. Let's combat that with more free throw attempts at from James Harden and Joel Embiid. The Sixers, obviously, we already talked about, are dominating at the free throw line, as they should. For comparison purposes, the Raptors are 20th in the league in free throw attempts. Harden and Embiid are first and fourth in the league in total free throws. So there's since I think the All-Star break. But I mean, that's it. Like, if the Sixers want any shot at advancing to the second round, man, it starts with Embiid and Harden working together, and that pick and roll. That pick and roll, when it looks good, it looks good. But the problem is there are stretches when Doc will go away from it and just give you hero ball. There's a time and place for sure, but we need to find better balance. I put out these pick and roll videos every single game, and there are segments where for third, fourth quarters, maybe one or two plays, if that. And that can't happen, man. I'm hoping that's like all just Doc trying to hide the tape, because if we get that, what we saw in that like first 5 games, remember when Embiid and Harden looked terrific off each other? I think they're going to do fine, but they can't get away from that. Just like we showed in the Joel Embiid video, they can't get away from that. That's their bread and butter. Tiago, your number 1 is dominant star power.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to what you're saying, Chris. I mean, the Sixers brought Harden here to have 2 top 15 players in the NBA, period. two top 15 players in the NBA simply do not lose in the first round of the NBA playoffs. It just doesn't happen. I mean, if it does, it's a catastrophic outcome. So the Sixers have two top 15 players in the NBA, one of which I believe is an MVP level player. Those guys never lose in the first round of the playoffs, ever. So, yeah, I mean, you stacked it up against what Toronto brings to the table. I mean, they don't have anything nearly what the Sixers have in terms of star power. So I think that makes a massive difference when you talk about, like you said, the free throw rate, being able to get the shots that you want, especially down the stretch. So I'm very confident that the Sixers can exert their will on Toronto. The numbers suggest that. Like you said, the starting lineup has been dominant against Toronto. They're plus 30 net rating when Harden has played against Toronto, plus 30 net rating against Toronto. That is massive. It's a matter of the coach getting out of the way, man. It's as simple as that. Just get out of the way, let your guys do your thing, and you should win this series in 5 or 6.
Love it, man. What about you, Sean? Your number one is MVP Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I'm on the same page here. I mean, at the end of the day, the NBA is a star-driven league, and Joel Embiid is by far the biggest star in these series. And the Raptors do a great job mixing up looks to being creative defensively, but there's no player on the roster over 6'9". Any one-on-one matchup should be one that Joel Embiid absolutely dominates. The Sixers need to mix in some early post-ups, get him deep position, do whatever you have to do to get him the ball in a favorable spot. But this is a series that he can still absolutely take over, even with all these defensive looks. So, and to Tiago's point as well, James Harden, even at this stage of his career, I still believe is the bigger star than anyone on the Raptors and the better overall players than their top tier. So that in his favor should be enough to drive the team. Embiid still has to play up to the level. Obviously, the decision-making is huge. He's going to have to make the right reads when they come, pass out of doubles when he needs to or when it's the right decision. So he can't go into two superstar takeover mode either. But a solid series by Joel Embiid should be enough to drive the Sixers to a series win.
Yeah, and that kind of we're kind of all on the same page here across the board. Mine is the rise of playoff Joel. He's got an ugly history of playoff pressure. No one can deny that, man. Like in 7 career elimination games, Embiid is shooting 42% from the field. He has 35 turnovers and 15 assists. We've seen Embiid grow leaps and bounds as a passer, reading double teams, reading triple teams. He's going to get put to the test significantly. You saw the video. Toronto's going to double and triple triple team this guy all day. And you look at kind of Embiid's stats against the Raptors, 29 points a game, 11 plus rebounds. But like you take away that one game in December when the Raptors were without Van Fleet and Anunoby, Barnes, and Achua, in those 2 losses, Embiid shot 38% from the floor. The Raptors just have the length and the manpower across the rotation to really kind of just throw different looks at this guy nonstop, and it's going to be a problem. Can Joel Embiid rise to the occasion? And I think he will. This is the MVP Joel Embiid. He's grown leaps and bounds this year. It's time for Joel Embiid to step up and be that MVP and, make the right decisions in crucial moments. Not turn over the ball in crucial moments. Make the extra pass when he needs to. It's going to be a lot of fun.